Hello everyone, Lee Blackwell here. I want to talk about a new concept to me, or new description of a concept to me that Stephen Parker introduced to me a few days ago. This is we're looking at a page in his paper recently published in the International Journal for Instructional and Distance Learning. I think that's the name of the journal, I should remember. International Journal for Instructional Technology and Distance Learning. Close. It's the August 2014 edition. And in that is a paper by Stephen Parker. There it is, Role-Based Design and Evaluation of the Scedagogical approach for developing systemic e-learning capacity by leading and facilitating agile co-design processes. Okay, there's probably a simpler way to say that, and I happen to know, thanks to Stephen, that scedagogical is a word he invented at 2 o'clock in the morning or somewhere near that, bolt upright in bed and shouted it out to the world. And it's a combination of schematic and gogical, such as in pedagogical, so design pedagogy or design teaching. And this is the outline of an approach that Stephen's been doing at the Southwest Institute of Technology, TAFE, Southwestern Institute of TAFE. But I happen to know that Stephen's been following this model, or using variations of this model for quite a number of years, at least 10 years, I'd say. Whether he'd agree with me on that, I'm not too sure. But what he described to me is where he is working with a team of people whose task it is to teach a certain thing, and his involvement with them is to help them develop flexible, blended, or online teaching practices. Same with me. And he gives them a clear, descript role in the whole process, and people play to that role. Forgive me, Stephen, if I've simplified that too far or missed it completely. But the thing that jumped out at me is down the page a little bit, a key ingredient. Here it is, a key ingredient of that model where everybody has a clear and distinct role, as if that, well, you know, it'd be surprising. In educational settings, often projects are run and people don't have clear and distinct roles other than job title. So yeah, surprising as it may sound, this is actually a helpful way to think about things. And the key ingredient is the boundary object. Now, in design terms, this boundary object might be called the brief, although the brief might be a little bit more conceptual than the actual object. So one of the things I found wanting in this paper was a clearer description, even examples of what a boundary object can look like. So while we wait for Stephen to either join us now or later, I thought I'd chuck in by Digo a sticky note pointing to what I think boundary objects that I've developed following, perhaps unconsciously, this model that Stephen's giving us in the paper. This was way back in 2008, a template in Wiki Educator for the group I was working with back then called the Otago Polytechnic. And this was once again following Stephen Parker's musings on structured development approaches. And this is the unit template. Now, in the vocation sector and increasingly in the university sector, we have more structured ways of teaching based around learning objectives, accessible learning objectives. And in the vocation sector in New Zealand and Australia, these objectives are known as competencies, and they are largely nationally. So what one institution teaches is, or assesses, I should say, is to the same standard of objectives and competencies as another institution. So that means a carpenter is a carpenter everywhere you look in Australia, more or less. Now, this template here is based in a media wiki called the Wiki Educator Project. And here we are looking at the template for the competency, for a competency, a single competency, or a list of objectives in a subject. So in the template, we've simply got 2 objectives and the aspects or descriptions of those objectives below. And then part of the template is a library of resources that are regularly updated by the teacher, and they design a range of learning activities that would assist somebody in developing or acquiring or learning these objectives. Right, so that's one boundary object. The design thinking behind that objective, the design thinking behind that boundary object was this. In this graph over here, we would have the course outline, course or subject. There would be the first learning objective of the course, there would be the second, so on and so forth, third, fourth, fifth. And under that would be a library of resources that both the teacher, the librarian, and other students perhaps even could add to this list and adjust, and it'd be basically an annotated bibliography. And then this page would be a range of activities designed, almost infinite number of activities that people could pick and choose from, drawing from the library of resources. And that can include real life events in a calendar and stuff like that, to demonstrate achievement of this objective, accumulating towards an achievement of this course outline. And then some of these activities could move across into other courses and other objectives. Right, that was the design thinking behind that approach. Skip forward a few years to today, and here is what I think is another boundary object. Again, a template for what is called here a subject outline. So a subject outline in the university sector typically includes, common with the Otago Polytechnic, much more simplified template. But here would be a description of the subject, and that paragraph that I've highlighted there actually structures that description into, start with a sentence on what the subject is about and why it's how and why it's relevant. Follow with a sentence or two on the range of topics or skills taught and how they are taught in this particular subject, e.g. through videos and readings, skills workshops, assignment works, etc. Follow with a sentence on the type of commitment people will have to make to successfully complete the subject, and finish with a sentence or two on the assessment options for people. Okay, so that's the description. It's a lot like a abstract or a synopsis, containing everything below up in here. And below we have the objectives. And in this template, there's some pointers to people on how to write an objective to the qualifications framework standards. Then another section called the assessment. So that's a list item of the numbers of assessments that people would have to complete to satisfy this subject. A schedule of learning activities. They could be lectures, workshops, tutorials, community gatherings, whatever. And then below here is resources, and these resources are pertinent to this template, such as some guides on how to write plain English, and things like that. Okay, so really what I'm creating this little video for is asking Stephen, are these boundary objects? Is this what he means by a boundary object? Can you recognize the wider design intent, more like the brief, that has generated these boundary objects? And then I'd like to go into a conversation of, Stephen says that he's having great success with the role-based design, and while I haven't overtly described it as such, I think I have been following this process, and I wouldn't claim success. You create these templates and people use them to varying degrees of engagement. Some people fill it out like any other form without paying much attention. Others go overboard and start changing and chopping and changing. basically moving it outside its intended standard, and others just ignore it altogether. Maybe what other problem I'm citing there is because we don't have clear roles, but I doubt that would improve it. Maybe it's because the tools or the platforms I'm using in these two examples, a MediaWiki, are too complex. Most people say that to me, but I'd just like to qualify that because those examples I'm showing you on a MediaWiki are the source content. What actually is generated out of those is a simple Word document or word processor document. Some people edit it in Google Docs, other people edit it in Word. And if we were to upload it into the wikis, I'd largely do that on their behalf and coach them into editing the wiki themselves. So the wiki platform isn't the problem. I'm just pointing to those because they're the background, the source content to what ultimately is just a simple text Word document that people fill out. The other part of the problem too is that those templates are a simplification of institutional templates, which are wildly complex. And most people probably decide to skip over my simplification, go straight into the complex institutional template, and in my observation anyway, end up not really giving any deep thought or consideration to the design of their subject because they're so perplexed by the complexity of the institutional template, unfortunately. Okay, hope you grasped everything I had to say on there. I hope we're heading into a conversation on role-based design and boundary objects. Thanks, Steve.